Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. You have tuned in to sort of a different segment of the Sex and Suicide podcast. We did a bit of an urgent sort of platform this evening. This is my guest, Sarah Nicholson. Sarah, you're welcome to say hello. The reason why tonight is different is because Sarah has been watching some of the podcasts over the last little while, and some of the topics we get into are obviously the negative topics of sexual assault, rape, things along those lines. And Sarah is actually, first of all, let me commend you because you're the first person that's actually reached out to me, saying, "Hey, you know, this happened to me. I have yet to share it and talk about it. I'd like to do so with you." And so obviously, for anyone else watching, if you've experienced similar circumstances to what Sarah's gone through, whether it be sex-related, mental health-related, anything along the thoughts of suicide, obviously the happy stories as well. We want to share as much as we can about the great things that are involved in sex and relationships and love. But unfortunately, there's also a dark side to these issues as well. And Sarah's here to kind of shine light on something she went through and to tell us about her experience. So Sarah, do you want to tell me about sort of what events led up to this, and just kind of take it from where you're most comfortable, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I'll start with kind of what happened. So
okay.
I was up at my cottage for May 24 weekend, which is always my favorite weekend of the year.
Yeah. Where's your cottage?
Grand Bend.
Bend.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, big party town. Love it. I still love it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went up there, worked for my parents that day, went out afterwards, and then after the bar.
Where do you work?
I don't work there now, but my
okay.
parents own the mini putts in Grand Bend.
Okay, the mini putts. Yeah, spent many a day there for sure. I put a lot of money in your pockets. Okay, yeah, no problem. Okay. So you went out after you were working at the mini putt?
Yeah, went out to one of the bars up there.
Okay.
Had a good night. Went out afterwards, met up with an acquaintance and a friend's girlfriend at the time. We went back to this acquaintance's house. And he offered me a drink, and of course, I like my beer, so
like your beer.
I said yes. And the biggest mistake that I made was I let him crack it for me, and I wasn't watching when that happened.
Okay.
So in that time, he had slipped me something.
Really?
So, yeah. So, that was. I'm always a person that's really careful. Like at the bars, I had my hand over my drink and all those.
Were you that
tricks.
kind of person even before this happened, or did you become that kind of person after this?
I was
happened?
always that type of person.
Always that type of person.
Yeah.
So the only mistake you made was trusting this guy, just when he turned his back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So then from there, my friend's girlfriend left, and some of his friends were still there, and I don't know at what point, but now I can only piece back little bits of it. Like I remember going to the upstairs apartment. I remember hanging out in the open area of the condo that he was renting. And then I don't know how much time went by, but I woke up with him on top of me with my pants down, and it was happening.
Really?
And luckily when I woke up, I guess he's the type of person that didn't want me to be awake, because I was able to push him off and I just ran.
Really?
I pulled up my pants. I remember as I was going up, doing up my jeans, and then the next thing I know, I'm at one of my parents' mini putts, crying, trying to call my brothers, not knowing what to do. At that point, it was sunlight, so I have no idea what time it was. Still at this point, I don't know when it was. And a cop pulls up, a cop that I know, cop that's in Grand Bend all the time, and he tells me to shut up, and he doesn't care what happened, go the F home.
Really?
And I'm causing a noise complaint. So
wow.
So that's the first thing that kind of
holy shit.
For my aftermath, it really still bothers me.
100%. Well, this is someone that's supposed to be serving the community, telling you to fuck off. Yeah,
telling me to shut up. And he knows me, and he knows that I'm not an emotional person. I'm not, someone that would be. So I don't know if he knew that it was me, because there was distance between us, but still not really okay, I think.
Right.
Some point on my way home, I'd say about halfway from my parents' business to my cottage, which is only a 7-minute walk, I got a hold of one of my brothers who couldn't understand me because I was just
You were still under the influence of whatever drug this was.
Yeah, and I was just bawling. Like, nothing came to. So by the time I got to my house, my brother had woken up my parents. My parents were there and still couldn't comprehend what I was trying to say. My dad was looking at me, and he looked at my eyes, and he's like, "You're on drugs," and he kept screaming that at me, and I finally was able to get, I don't know the words out, but I said I was raped. And that was like, I collapsed at the front door. I didn't want anybody to touch me. I was just a wreck. And then I went to our bathroom, and I was laying in the bathtub sobbing, but I kept having a really weird like flashback of a CSI that I saw years before of the girl, one of the agents, performing a rape kit on herself so she could shower before she went into work, because you can't shower before you get a rape kit done. So I'm laying in the bathtub wanting to be clean, knowing that I can't, and freaking out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So then I don't really, that whole area is kind of blurry to me, but I was took my childhood sleeping bag, ran down to the beach, had some time to myself, my earphones in, woke up my neighbor from apparently me still crying, who's like a grandmother to me, and so she came down and was asking me what was wrong. When I told her, she started yelling at my parents for not taking me to the hospital or to the police right away.
Right. Why didn't they? Did they?
They were giving me my little bit of time to. We did go.
Yeah.
So like right after that, I got into my mom's car, and we drove to the Exeter Hospital. And after talking to them for a little bit, they're like, "We can't help you. Like we don't have the ability to help you right now. You have to go into London."
Really?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so I just relived this once. Now let's drive into London to relive it again. So
why wouldn't they have told you that you need to go to London right from the beginning?
I don't.
So you went through your whole story with them, and they said they couldn't do anything for you?
Yeah, I was sitting in a room with a nurse, and and they like, I think it was more she was in shock. Like, I don't think she had dealt with a situation like that. But again, these parts are still blurry until. Sure. So I'm in London, in the hospital. Again, go through everything, go through a rape kit. They've taken my pants away from me, giving me hospital pants. I'm sitting there in clothes that aren't mine, and just wanting to go home and shower and go to sleep. Like, at this point, I'd been up since like 8 o'clock the morning before, and this is sometime after sunrise, the hour drive into London, all that stuff. So I have no idea what time this is. And I go through the rape kit, and then I'm sitting down with the counselor and the nurse, and they're giving me the options between if I want to take the morning after pill or if I want to take an AIDS vaccine.
They give you the choice between whether you wanted to take one or the other?
One contradicts the other.
Really?
So they don't work together.
I didn't know that.
So they're just spewing all this information at me, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. You tell me what to do. Yeah. I don't know what to do. I can't think straight. And one of the things that I look back on in that moment is I kind of laugh that I had a moment in my life where getting AIDS didn't seem like the worst thing. Because I was thinking, if I were to have this person's baby, or even a month from now find out that I'm pregnant, then I would have him, he would still be in me. Right. And I was just like that. I still have a hard time dealing with like the fact that I went for AIDS. I didn't want AIDS.
Right. So you didn't want AIDS, so you chose.
So that because I knew there was another option later down. I'd have my choices, but still, I always knew that there could have been like a month from now, knowing that he was still had a part of me still in me, and yeah. So that's.
Holy shit.
Sorry, I'm trying to kind of power through this. So
I know. You don't want to like. I get it. Get it. You don't want to stop and kind of feel it. Yeah. I know, which is okay too. But
yeah, it's
okay. All right. I won't keep you. I won't keep you stuck on that choice. That just seems like a really fucked up decision to have to make.
Yeah, and I've since that point I've tried to research it to find out like
if there's any difference now, or
I can't really find anything because every article that I can ever find on this AIDS vaccination is about like nurses or doctors that get a cut in surgery or in triage and stuff. So there is nothing that really out there that tells me that. And I'm like, but that was a point that I can remember very well. I know they had that conversation with me.
Yeah.
And I can't find anything that supports that, and that's something that's always kind of bothered me as well.
Wow.
And then I was just telling you this, actually, I was sitting down with the counselor after that, and this is the part that I think haunts me the most.
So you've done the rape kit at this point.
Yeah.
They've got your clothing from the night, the whole shitty thing that happened to you. And then you've now taken the AIDS vaccination. Yeah,
which is like a series of pills that I had to take afterwards as well.
Okay, so you started taking it then. And then the next step was to go see one of the counselors in-house?
It comes in and kind of talks to you, sees if you're okay, makes kind of the decision with you if you want to go ahead and press charges and have the cops come in right then, or gives you the option to do it later.
Okay.
So in this conversation, this is still something that she pretty much sat me down and told me, do you drink a lot? Yeah, a fair bit.
Yeah.
Are you sexually active? Yes. Are you promiscuous in any ways? And I'm like, why are you asking me these questions? Like, I'm the one that was just assaulted. What's going on here? And she's like, well, if any of these things are true, then you're really going to have to think of how much him being held accountable means to you. So
really?
What do you mean? She's like, well, everything that you've done in your life is going to be something that his lawyers are going to use against you. And you're going to have to sit in a courtroom with your family, and with it becoming, record with your family and whoever else is there to support you is going to know your deep, dark secrets if they can find them out.
Yeah. So how did that make you feel? Did you have anything that you were really afraid of being exposed?
I was very open sexually at that point. I wasn't a virgin. I wasn't shy about having sex. I had a good time. I made some decisions that maybe weren't my greatest moments.
Does. But
but
everybody does.
I knew there would probably be things that could be taken the wrong way. So at that point I said, okay, well, I can't make a decision right now. I just need to sleep. I need out of here.
Right.
So I went home, went to sleep. I was supposed to work that day for my parents. So between my brother and my friends, they covered off my shift and worked for me. And when I woke up, I was ready to go back out. This was over to me. I was like, nope, it's done. It happened. Give me some drinks. We're going out. This is my favorite weekend. Nobody is taking that away from me.
Right.
And that's something that my parents had that, obviously here's their daughter that this horrible thing just happened to them, and she wants to go back out to where it happened. And I'm like, no, it's not. So we had a big argument about it, and I won, and I, carried on with my life. I was like, this is not stopping me. So I plowed through for a long time with nothing was stopping me. And
when you went back out to the same bar and everything, did you have any flashbacks of?
No, because it didn't happen at the bar, right? So, and at that bar, it was pretty much like a home to me. Like the owners were always so good to me.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but
yeah. Oh, I know where this happened.
Yeah.
So,
the bouncers were always great to me. I went back to where I felt comfortable. That's where I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And
what about the apartment afterwards? Ever step foot back in that? No. Fuck that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't until partway through the summer that I realized that even though in my mind it hadn't affected me and I was still living my life, that it was because there was a certain spot on the strip that I hadn't passed all summer.
You wouldn't go near it?
No.
Just like subconsciously? You weren't even like...
I guess I just kind of, planned my life around it.
Really?
I never went up to Gables because it was at the top of the strip. I never went past the certain point because I knew if I went past that certain point, I could run into him and I would have to walk past that place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was something that I completely at that point thought I was fine. Oh yeah, I forgot about. So when I got home to Toronto, like Pickering, after that weekend, I came home to a message from him on the internet.
Really?
That said that was fun. We should do it again.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And
fucking nerve.
I lost it. And I remember my dad coming into my room and asked me what was wrong, and I told him, and he said, all you have to do is give me his name and he'll never take a breath again. Yeah. And I knew that would be a threat that my dad would follow through on. He would deliver something to him. Yeah. So this point, my brothers and my dad and my mom don't know who it was.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's any father's greatest fear. I know that that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this is, to hopefully never hear those words come out of my daughter's mouth. And like, I am so sorry that you went through all that. And to the guys out there, any of you fucking pieces of shit that are putting drugs in women's drinks, you're the fucking scum of the earth. And I have no respect for you. I don't think anyone should. If that's you, you need to change your fucking ways. Because how has this affected you since?
In a lot of ways. Well, I think something that will always stay with me was sometime in that summer, I think about halfway through, it came out of we were sitting down drinking, and it was the owners of one bar and some friends that I'd known forever, and we started talking about the subject, and one girl there knew the owners of the building that he was staying in, and she lost her shit. She was very protective of, I was friends with her little sister, very protective, and she lost her shit. She went the next day and told the owner of the building, you need to evict him. He can't be living here. You have girls living here. Yeah. So my brother's girlfriend at the time worked for them. So, next day, here's my brother's girlfriend knocking on the door while she's supposed to be at work. She's like, I need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, okay. So she says, like, my boss needs to know. Does she need to evict him? Is this true? And I was like, you can never let my brothers know. Like, they cannot know. And that's something that I've, my brother's girlfriend and I didn't always get along at that time, but that was something that, like, from that point on, it kind of changed our relationship. Like, because they did evict him. He did find somewhere else to live that summer, but from that, a few other people found out of what happened, and a friend of mine came to me and asked me about it and said, I'm pretty sure he's still doing it to people. Really? To this day? No, this was still that summer. Okay. So I'm getting that really was the angry worst. Here. That was the worst thing for me, because all I kept thinking is, that fucking counselor told me not to go through and press charges, and if I had, it wouldn't be happening to somebody else right now. Right. So I tried to get, nobody would tell me exactly who it was to protect everybody. I'm like, that's fine, but like, let them know that if they want to go ahead and pursue things, I'm right there with them, and we can do this together. Yeah. One background that's kind of shady versus two people, that's a pattern. That's something that, the girl wouldn't talk about it.
So how many women do you think are out there that are going through similar experiences that are being told, well, are you prepared? Because I know exactly what it's like when you have shit in your closet. And it's like, okay, well, the whole world's going to know about when I did this or when I did this. That shouldn't deter you from potentially having, if you think about other people and not about yourself. I mean, I know that at that time, but there could have been some things avoided here, right?
Yeah. That guilt of knowing that somebody else went through it is something that I know will affect me for the rest of my life.
Do you think that's worse than having this counselor tell you, like, everything that you could have brought forward? Do you think that if you could go back in time, you would have pressed charges that night?
Probably.
Okay, so to the women that are listening out there, take it from someone that knows. Yeah. If you've gone through this and you're debating because someone's maybe saying that, well, their lawyers are going to kind of rip you apart on the stand, this is someone that can say, after going through it, that if you could go back in time, you would still go through it. You would still press charges and take your chances.
Charges, yeah. Okay. I would let them rip me apart, and because I I know that it happened to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, I think there are some people out there that think, you know, this is just a one-off. And that's something that I did think for a long time, was like, up until that happened, was like, you know, there had to have been some sort of miscommunication. Like, there, you know, maybe he didn't mean to, or something. Like, all those things play through my mind, because everyone else up there loved him. He was the life of the party. Everybody loved him. They thought he was so great. And here I am, the only person that hates him. And that knows that. I was like, I couldn't put the two people together, that what he did to me and how everybody else looked at him.
Right.
So I was like, that was difficult until that happened. And I was like, well, obviously it wasn't just me. He's just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me was that. But yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, throughout the whole summer. That was like, you know, I realized there was times that he used to stand across the street from my work and just stare at me.
Really?
So he was like putting the fear of God in me, because he knew that I was like, just every time it was like, I could feel his body pressing against me again. Really? Yeah.
So this happened, you said this happened about 10 years ago. So I knew you 10 years ago. Yeah. Because I was working up in the same area. So I, like, this whole summer that happened, when I knew you, you seemed like you did a good job of putting on the face of like, you know, I'm fine and I'm still going out. Was that something that you did just to kind of help yourself get through it?
I think so. That's like how I said the day after I still went out. I think I have always been a person that I just need to power through. It's like, you know, any trouble that comes my way, you deal with it in time. You know, you have to keep going, because if you stop, then you let yourself fall apart. So I was like, if I power through this, I can deal with it in little bits. Mm-hmm. And that's how I protected myself from, I think, just completely breaking down. Right. So, which I know that's not the case for everybody. I know that there's a lot of people that couldn't do that. Yeah. You have to go through your own process. Yeah. But that was what I did. And like some of my best friends that I had been friends with since I was 6, that I played soccer with, they had no idea. Yeah. No idea whatsoever, until I would tell them, and they would just be like, how are you out right now? How are you, like, still... You know, everybody, like you said, I mean, everybody copes in different ways. Yeah. There's no right way to do it. It's whatever way is going to be the most healing for you. So with this happening 10 years ago, how do you think that you're affected today? Like, do you think, just tell me kind of how that has played a negative role in your life, and how often you think about it, or what, you know, in that 10-year period. I've gone through different stages, where there's different stages where it's really affected me. And I think I've made really poor relationship choices because of that. Interesting. Like, I think I kind of separated, well, I know I did for a long time. I separated sex and relationship. Really? I had a boyfriend at one point, I don't even know how long ago that was, that I absolutely adored. I was totally... like in love with him, and one of the reasons why we broke up was because I couldn't be intimate with him. The only time I could was when I was shit-faced hammered, and he called me out on it one night, and I couldn't figure out why at that point. But now I know it was like, for me, it was either you're like a relationship or sex. If I had sex with somebody, it wasn't. And it wasn't an attachment thing. Yeah. It wasn't a love thing. No. Do you think that changed ever since? Is that when that changed? Was that night for you? I think so. You think so? Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. So, you know, that's something that I've really had to kind of be aware of when making, you know, choices in relationships and stuff, and trying to get people to understand that is really difficult without telling them everything that happened. And then again, that's also something that's fairly difficult. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So do you find that, have you had a relationship since that's been successful, where you have made the emotional and the sexual connection and it's been okay? Has that happened for you since this time, or are you still struggling with that? I think I'm still struggling with it a little bit, but my last relationship had so many other issues that kind of clouds that portion of it. But But yeah, I think it still does kind of creep in there every once in a while of like, actually I know it does because there was somebody else that since my last like long-term boyfriend, I straight up told him either we're having sex or we're having a relationship. If we have sex now early in the relationship, there won't be a relationship. And he was like, no, like, this is how people do things now. This is how people date, is you start having sex and eventually you date. And I was like, I can't do that. If I start having sex with you, I don't want anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that only in the last couple of years that I think actually in the last year that I've really realized that those are the reasons. Like my relationship a few years ago, that I wish I could have changed things because he was absolutely fantastic. I still adore him. When he straight up called me out on it, I had no idea why. I just knew I only slept with him when I was really, really drunk. And it was the only time I think I would let myself, because I didn't want that separation of emotion with him. Like I didn't want to not like him anymore.
Wow.
Weird.
No, I don't think it is. I think this is probably something that a lot of women and men out there that have been victims of sexual assault. I don't know how. Like I've obviously never experienced anything like that myself, so I can't imagine how difficult that must be.
Yeah, it's. I think the day that probably I touched base with you on this when I first messaged you was actually my best friend was also assaulted. You
wanted to share her story as well,
yeah.
Right?
I think her story is something more that is going to, like, people out there need to know, because it's more about consent. It wasn't, drugs weren't involved. I think like anybody who's drugged, the person that's doing it, it doesn't matter what we say to them. It doesn't matter what they have something that's, not quite there.
I agree 100%.
Whereas I think what a lot of people are having troubles with now, and my friend did as well, was that you flirt with people. Sexting is out there. Sending dick pics is a big thing. So you're having all of these pre-relationships that are like flirting with someone. And then when it comes down to it, people really have to realize that at that moment, they still have to consent.
Of course.
And that's what happened in her situation. She wanted to have sex with him, just not when it happened.
Right.
And she told him no. She tried to fight him off, and he just didn't let her.
So
this was what he was going to do.
So this was something that was kind of created by the back and forth of technology in a way. And this is something that's being faced in colleges and universities, is the fact that when you swipe right on someone and you have these conversations, just because you meet them for a drink, even if you've had, basically had sexting convos, it doesn't mean that you can just jump right into it. They're totally separate things. Every different act that you do and perform requires consent.
Yes.
So tell me her story. And the reason why she's not here, she's in BC right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's in BC, so Sarah's going to share her story on her behalf.
Well, it is pretty simple. It's kind of exactly what I told you. She was, flirting with this guy. He was an athlete, so
was it a Tinder date or was it?
No, this was a while ago as well. It wasn't quite 10 years ago, but it was.
So was it texting?
Soon after, yeah, texting, internet. Back then, there was a lot of like hockey websites where people would pretty much. There was actually a website that would tell you terminology that guys would use in the locker room, and then there's a chat that was set up from there, and that's where a lot of girls had at this time been meeting guys, partying with them, getting drunk, doing dirty things, thinking that the guys were going to like them afterwards, and when they didn't, they cried rape.
Wow.
So for my friend, knowing that and knowing a lot of the guys, because like I worked for a hockey organization, both of us grew up in the hockey rink, we knew this stuff was going on. So for that reason is the reason why she didn't come forward. She didn't want to be another person that looked like they were crying rape.
Right.
which
you do. In all fairness, though, you do hear about some stories of organizations of athletic organizations sharing women and doing some pretty not just women but both whatever sexual orientation you may be. They do competitions and they do things that kind of people could be, you know, outside of that world could be frowned upon. But again, if they're getting consent, who's to say what is wrong? As long as the person doesn't feeling pressured. Yes. But a lot of the times they are. Let's be honest.
I think in that case, there was a lot of girls that were feeling the pressure because not really pressure from the guys, but pressure because they wanted to be accepted by the guys.
Or dating a guy that might be going into the NHL or something like that.
I'm talking pre-NHL.
You're talking
OHL guys. Like, I'm not talking about guys that are necessarily... I mean, there are a lot of them that now are in the NHL or had been in the NHL. But like, these are just, you know, guys that played hockey and weren't necessarily going anywhere, and this is how they got off, right? This dirty, disgusting things that are absolutely funny to read. But
it's about the story.
A lot of these, it's always about the story.
It's about the story rather than the act itself.
That's like this website was guys would then go on and post stories afterwards, and that's when girls would freak out and cry rape, and then later admit that it was just they regretted it. And that's also something that I kind of wanted to touch on today.
Yeah, go ahead.
That for all the girls or guys out there that regret something from being drunk or doing something that they wouldn't, you know, that wasn't normally in their wheelhouse, if you consent to it then, it's not rape. It is regret. And that's something that I think is really getting mixed out there, is a lot of people are saying like, oh, if you're drunk, then you can't consent. Well, yes, you can. That's like saying, you know,
from a legal standpoint, you can't.
Yes.
From a legal standpoint, if you go into any college or university and you want the true definition of consent, if you're drunk, you can't say yes. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to say. Obviously, it's one of those areas where alcohol is just blurred lines completely, right? Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, because a woman could totally think she wants it at that time, or a man could think that they want it totally and completely at that time. But if there is substance use happening, then you're technically not on a level where you can intelligently give that consent, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean it's not happening. Yeah.
Well, so I look at it as I've done some things while drunk. Right. That I then the next morning or a few days later woke up and went, why the fuck did I do that?
Right. And I'm sure there's many people out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's fucking, 3/4 of the sex happening in the world wouldn't be happening without alcohol.
Yes,
right? Yeah, I guarantee it.
So at that point, I can't be like, well, he raped me because I was drunk.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really getting, like, media and people are playing this off. It's like, well, if that's the case, then, give me my keys after I've been drinking and say, oh, well, I couldn't make that decision to drink and drive because I was already drunk. You're just opening it up to a lot of other things that if you can't make that decision, then you can't make any decisions. Right?
I think it already is completely blown off the hinges when it comes to consent. I mean, going around and talking to the colleges and universities when I was there was it's a pretty clear line saying that if you are drunk, but then you get into the whole instance of, okay, well, what constitutes someone being drunk? I mean, are you basically saying that you can't give, as soon as that beer touches your lips, you can no longer say yes? Yeah. Or I could take advantage of you if you do, and the fault's on me, or whatever. Yeah. But what if both people have been drinking as well, and then it seems to lie on the man's fault because the man's usually bigger and more aggressive in a lot of instances that, as we've seen in the past.
And so to touch on that too, I think that there are, from my experience, girls still make a lot smarter decisions while drunk than guys do. So then if think of how many guys go out there, have a few drinks, get into a bar fight. You don't really
see there
as
many times.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
But you don't see that as much with girls. Like, yes, girls do get scrappy at point, but there's a lot of girls out there that just, they go out, they drink, they don't. But guys seem to make stupid decisions. The amount of people that I've seen, like, drunk after the bar in Grand Bend that walk the entire strip on the roofs of the buildings, jumping from building to building, only to get down across the street. You know, like, that's not something that you'd see girls doing. That's not really a smart decision.
So do you think that's more of a macho thing where testosterone plays a big part?
Yeah. And so if you're going to go and say, well, the guy was drunk and the girl was drunk, and then put blame on the guy, no, they're the ones that don't make the more sound decisions when they're drunk.
It's interesting to hear, like, and I understand yours was a special circumstance because someone slipped something in your drink.
Yes.
But it's interesting to see you have that stance.
Yes,
even
I know.
Now. Yeah.
And actually, my friend who had the opposite thing happen to her, she feels the same way. Mm-hmm. Like, she's the first person that will call people out. And I think both of us have always had really good bullshit readers.
Yeah.
But when it comes to people, like, talking about rape and stuff, both of ours are heightened. I can, like, look somebody in the eye, and if they're crying rape, I think I can tell if they're lying or not.
Really? So you have a whole... Interesting. So you're kind of saying that, like, you really, because you've gone through it now, you really almost have more of a disrespect for the people that are crying rape, as you say.
Oh, yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's disgusting because it's making it more common. It's making it blurred lines for people when they're like, when there are cases when people are trying to say no and they're like, oh, well, you know, you are still drunk or whatever. And they're making it too much of a gray area by talking about it too much, or fake instances of it happening.
Okay. So do you think that, because, I mean, by your logic, sort of, if I'm, you know, obviously I don't drink anymore, but if I'm drunk at a bar and a woman's drunk, it doesn't even necessarily have to be at a bar. Say that we're here. So if I'm sort of the aggressor and I'm saying, come on, you know, as long as she can make the sound decision, because she can make a wiser decision when she's drunk and say, no, we shouldn't do this, then, you know, as long as I don't pursue that, then she made the right decision. But if she says yes, then it's kind of on her.
Yeah, if she agrees to it.
Okay, all right.
Because, like, that's like...
Take
alcohol out of it.
You can't, because alcohol is, like, the big thing here.
No, I know, but say there was two people that were, you know, having this conversation, alcohol wasn't playing a part of. If you still consent, then you still consent. You know, there is no taking the only way of taking it back. Yes, and that's something that I also want to say. So
you can change your mind.
To the young guys out there, I really think this is a big topic for them, especially going into college and, you know, again, or hockey players or basketball players where, like, the story is the big thing. So you feel more pressure to go through with it, or your hormones are so high that you just keep pushing for it.
Right.
No is not the only form of no.
I agree.
Body language. If a girl is pushing you off, that's a good sign that she doesn't want this to happen.
Sure.
If she's frozen and not, you can tell that she looks frightened, that's another thing that you kind of have to say, whoa, are you okay? Is this still okay to happen? And at that point, let her reassess, and you reassess, like, this doesn't seem like what she wants, then maybe I should stop doing it.
Right. Well, if you want to clearly define consent, it has to be sober. It has to be an enthusiastic yes, not just a yes, like, because like you're saying, you can say your body can say one thing and you can vocalize another. But that being said, a lot of people in that moment, if you want to be safe, especially if you're, you know, let's face it, there's still a stigma towards men and being the more pushy and dominant. If you want to stay safe, then you really do need to push and make sure that you get an enthusiastic yes. If you're not sure, it's better to withdraw than to move forward. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like,
but there's so many. Every situation, I agree, is so fucking different.
Yeah.
But anytime you just want to make sure that the person that's with you, I mean, make sure that they're comfortable.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's you know, and I think that's kind of with the disassociation between relationship and that was because I was not comfortable. Like, you know, that's built into my body that I was not comfortable.
So do you feel like your sex now, that you have to, it almost sounds like you have to be a little bit numb, a little bit drunk. Is drinking usually involved when you have sex now?
For a long time, yes. Not so much anymore. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a disassociation there. So, like, do you find it enjoyable still?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, that's a big thing.
Yeah. And I know that that's not the case for everybody, but I think because I always had a healthy sex life, that was something that I enjoyed, that I still, like, you know, my body still enjoys it. I still can, can go down that way. I think it's just the emotional part that I have to be in a relationship, I think, first and fully trust the person, like more than just normal people would, to have sex and be in a relationship with them. If I have sex too early with someone, I know that then there's no, like, the feeling just kind of stops.
It's really interesting because you're the first person that I've talked to. I mean, there's obviously a lot of women that I've talked to that even their first time, they're not really sure if they gave permission. There's been things where they don't know a lot of the time, or they, in certain experiences that they went through, they couldn't tell, but they didn't really know. And because they didn't know, they didn't push forward. You, black and white, you know that this happened to you and this was a non-consensual thing. Yeah. And this is the first time I've actually had someone come on and talk about the effects from it. So I really appreciate you being here, because it's new to me too. It's new to pick your brain about this kind of stuff. And
actually, since I messaged you this week, a lot of these things that I'm realizing have come to light to me. Like,
good.
I've always been a person that I write through things. Like, I write out what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling,
like
all
journal?
that stuff. Yeah. Like, I write through it.
Yes.
I have my whole life. But I didn't realize until the night that I messaged you, I was up till 4 a.m. and I finally, for the first time in 10 years, wrote out what happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
And it was like, and that's why I kept saying to you, I am excited to do this. I'm excited to do this because it is something that I've always wanted to find an outlet to talk about this, so that other people, don't have to go through it. Or if they go through it, then they can know that they're not alone.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So would you, for anyone watching that's maybe going through something similar, would you be okay with them sending you a message? I mean, okay.
Yeah, that's, I've always been a person that I will talk about it. Mm-hmm. I've never had a problem talking about it. I actually, this week, talked about it. I think all of my coworkers know now.
Good. Good for you.
Because I talked about it at work.
It's been a big week for you.
Yeah.
Good.
It was. It was a first, and other things that I wrote with the writing, I always, in the last 10 years, I've had difficulties writing with any situation that I'm trying to write through, because it always, like, little bits of that, like, all of my decision making, when I actually sit down and try and, like, work my way through it, that would always kind of come back into it. Like, it would be, oh, well, I made this decision because of that or something, which I don't think is always true.
Right.
But when I'm trying to work through something, it's something, so when I'm sitting down and trying to work through something, that comes back up to me.
Very interesting.
I know.
That's awesome. It sounds like this has been like a really good week for you to grow.
And it has.
How do you feel after it? Just so people come, because obviously you're the first person that's reached out and actually wanted me to set up something for you, which I think is awesome. Yeah. So for anyone else, like, how do you feel right now? For anyone else that's nervous, that maybe has a story that they're thinking about, they want to share, whether they live in London, Ontario, which is where we do this, or anywhere where they want to write in, or even do a Skype call. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel a little bit of release?
Yeah.
Okay.
From the moment that I messaged you, I started to feel really good.
Good.
And then after I wrote, then I talked about it at work. My supervisor and I are extremely close. We've had people talk to us about, that's something that I also want to talk about. I'm still very open with talking about sex. My supervisor and I have been told that when other people are in the office, we need to shut up because we're too inappropriate.
Okay.
So I don't have that problem. It's not something that is super secretive to me or anything like that. So if you need someone to talk to, I'm free.
Awesome.
You're free.
Yeah. Well, I try to make myself as available as possible. And this is the thing, is it's like, I had no idea that just that message to me is making that much of an impact to you. And that's why I love doing this, because I don't know who's watching. This isn't about getting a fucking trillion views on YouTube or anything. I don't give a shit. As long as one person that sees this, that's meant to see this, if it makes improvements in their life and I don't even know about it and you don't even know about it, then that's making a difference to me. And that's using the internet for a positive purpose. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that this is great, and I want everyone else that's watching out there to really think about whether or not you have a story that you'd like to get out there that will be inspirational. And even if you don't, if you just want to share your story and get it off your chest, we're here. We can do the same thing that we did for Sarah tonight. This was kind of a I don't want to call it an emergency like broadcast, but when someone reaches out to me and they want to share their story, I want to get you on as soon as possible, while the momentum's there, while it's fresh in your heart. And I also want to emphasize that I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm a coach. And what coaches know is that the answer for everything that you're looking for in life is always inside of you. So Sarah figured out a ton of shit without me doing anything really besides you reaching out, right?
Yeah.
So she knows everything. She's doing her own healing process. You guys have this within you to do as well. By coming on and sharing, that's the first step. So would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, it was even just talking to you up front was good for me.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. And is there, to anyone that's gone through, I mean, I think that if you are one of those gentlemen, you're not a fucking gentleman, you're a monster. I'm sorry. If you're putting drugs in women's drinks, you're a piece of shit. To me, you're the scum of the earth. And whether or not, as much as I want to be an advocate for mental illness, if you know what you're doing and you know you're taking advantage of people's bodies, this is their temple. And 10 years, like, look at Sarah, she's still affected by this. So hopefully you smarten the fuck up. But for anyone that's potentially out there at the bars and maybe this has happened to them, maybe it hasn't, what messages do you have that you want to pass on to other women that are going, sort of living the same past life that you lived, that they could potentially, help them avoid something like this, if at all possible? I mean,
I think there are a lot of people out there. I know of 2 bars where bartenders have been caught slipping things into people's drinks. Not in
bartenders.
Bartenders.
Okay, so bartenders, people.
Even, which I don't understand, because you're not the one that's going to be spending the night with them.
No, unless they're sitting there at the stool at the end of the night.
Yeah, and I'm talking about bars where there are no stools at the, I'm talking about more of a club setting, where I don't understand that.
Do you know what it is that they're slipping in these drinks?
The one was they actually found out for the police. I was at a bar one night. Bad shit happened to me. I was also drunk that night, but nothing bad shit in that terms happened to me. Okay. But I was with the police that night, and they were trying to get me to go to the hospital, and I was like, I'm fine. Like, my ankle hurts. That's it. Like, I'm fine. I, brushed it off, and then I found out months later that they knew what bar I was at that night. They had undercover cops there, and they were trying to get solid evidence to be able to prosecute, because the bartender there was, and eventually it was caught. I do know of a bar that it has been brought to their attention on multiple occasions.
And the guy still works there?
Yeah,
that's not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not okay.
And it's funny because I know one person that brought it forward to them, and they've known that person their entire life, the owners of the bar. So They know they're not making it up. And he ended up drinking his girlfriend's drink, and he was sober at the time. She didn't want the end of her drink. She was like, I ordered too many, I can't have this. He was driving, but he was like, okay, I'll drink it. One drink, drove, but didn't end up driving home because of how off he felt.
Really?
And then he was like, I had one drink and I was blacked out. I don't remember anything that happened, all that stuff. And then time period, other people were coming around with the same effects, and it was brought to the owner's attention, and they didn't do anything about it. And that guy, to this day, the last time I was at that bar, still works there. Really? So I just I tell people to,
but don't get your drinks from him. So I mean, it's one thing, because in a past life when I was spending 5 days a week at a bar, I don't know if I ever got drugged, because I was fucking myself up so much anyway. But I know it was common to always make sure that women watch a woman's drink, and you watch. Yeah. But what do you do?
Your hand over your drink.
But what if when it's the bartender? Like, you can't. Yeah, how do you do that?
I don't
know what advice to give there. Obviously, be as cautious as you can, but maybe make them make the drink right in front of you.
I would say, if possible, order from a woman. I truly feel that there'd be less women out there drugging
other women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. And I don't know if.
And men get drugged too, I'm sure. But
yeah.
Yeah.
But order from a woman. Watch keep watch while they're making their drink for you.
Make sure that they don't turn their back and maybe say, look, you turned your back. I didn't see. I didn't see you drink. I didn't see you making my drink during that time.
Bar rails at the front of a bar for a purpose, and it's not just for ease of the bartender. It is so that everything is made in front of you. So that's something to watch. Cover your drinks. I know that there was a college out in the States that was making nail polish. You could stick your finger in, and if it changes color.
I don't know if that ever went through, though, did it?
I don't know, but I think it should.
Yeah.
That's something
I think that'd be great, too, just to check it every time. I think that's phenomenal.
If that can actually get marketed and get on there, then, I'd be handing out bottles of nail polish to people.
I think you should give it at the door. Why not, right? Like, pay your cover charge, get a bottle of nail polish.
Or, they'll paint one of your fingers.
Exactly.
Put a little slab on it. And
maybe that's your your entryway into the bar instead of the stamp. Just do it. Paint a certain fingernail.
That would be a good thing for a bar to do.
There you go. So there's some ideas, some great messages here, and I actually have a bartender coming on tomorrow, so I'll ask him what he suggests. Because this is really obviously something that isn't new.
This happened to me 10 years ago.
Sure. But even without the drugs, it could be just a woman or a man drinking too much, and obviously we say it's easier to take advantage of a woman because a man might not be able to get a hard on, right? Like if they've drunk too much,
but you can still do other things to them that wouldn't be,
Yeah, sure. No, I still agree completely. I try to keep it as gender neutral as possible while we're talking, but there is difference in physiology that we have to be aware of as well. So, any last messages before we go? I think we did a really good job here, and again, you're very strong to come on here to share your story. I can't appreciate it enough. Even 10 years after the fact, is it still hard to talk about?
Here and there. Depends on what I talk about. When I there's certain things that I can talk about at one point and I'm completely fine, and then I'm talking about it with somebody else and I'm like, I can, things start coming up, and it's weird things. It's things like from the aftermath, mainly like talking about how a little bit of relationships with my brother and my dad changed because of just the way I felt about a situation, which wasn't necessarily true.
Right. Okay. So relationships changed.
Yeah.
So obviously there's going to be some changes that happen, and not necessarily, usually never for the good. Right. So okay. All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps everything up. So thank you very much for joining us, Sarah.
No problem.
And I hope that if you guys are questioning anything that you've ever gone through right now, Sarah is available to chat. I'm available to chat, and we will see you tomorrow. Okay?
Right.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no problem.